Greetings and welcome to another episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. I'm your host, Scott, and with me, as always, is my remarkable co-host, Caleb. Caleb, what's going on?
Not much. Just not much at all. Busy life. Holiday season is busy.
It's here and it's consuming our lives. No,
Yes.
we're, of course, back again to talk about the experience growing up as youth group kids in the 90s and how that has shaped our adult lives. We'll talk to old friends about their faith journeys spanning from the 90s to today and discuss current cultural topics through the lens of someone who grew up during that era. Caleb, we have a returning guest today for our Christmas episode.
Yeah, we threw out the call to somebody just want to come and chat with us about Christmas. We didn't have a super nailed down plan. We kind of just went with it. Thought we'd see what we could get. And so Troy and Meleah were good enough to answer the call and jump on with us and talk about Christmas
On short notice,
on very short notice.
no, we really enjoy speaking with them. They do a great job. They're really fun to talk to and have a fun dynamic. And we really centered this conversation around just Christmas memories, what we remember doing in church, youth group, that sort of thing. And of course, there are some surprising stories
Yeah.
from both of them. But it was really fun to talk about, hey, what did you do as a kid and why has it led to traditions that you hang with today?
Yeah, and it was a little less focused on, I mean, in all honesty, it was a little less focused on youth group, just because I don't think we had a ton of like directly correlated to youth group
Mm-mm.
Christmas memories, but we thought it'd be fun to just kind of talk Christmas stuff in general and church stuff. So I think it was still a pretty hilarious conversation at moments, and there was I think a couple surprises that got thrown out there that was like, I've never heard of this Christmas traditions. That was pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was anything we do for youth group for Christmas was just centered around church activities anyway. There was no special event that
Yeah.
at least we had, so which is fine. But there are things that we all did as kids that we do with our kids, and how has that shaped how we see Christmas these days? So it was fun conversation, and given that we gave them very little to prepare for
Yeah.
and very little time to prepare with, we really appreciated them jumping on.
Yeah, it worked out. It was really fun, I think is the right word for it. So hopefully it can be kind of a fun little throw it on the background while you're wrapping Christmas presents and have a couple chuckles
There
while
you go.
you're doing that.
So, we wanted to thank everyone for listening this year. We've put out over 30 episodes, if my math is correct. We started back in the spring. Here we are. We've been recording quite a bit those last few weeks, so we still have content coming. That being said, this will be our last episode for 2024,
Yep.
and we will be releasing our next episode on January 9th. We have 5 or 6 episodes ready to go for January, February that we're really excited about.
Yeah. No, we're still pumping along, and I think the reason we're doing it is because people are listening and engaging with the show. So I think I think we would still be giving this a shot if nobody was, but it's really exciting to see people listening, and we hope it's adding something to your life. Hope it's not just something we've thrown around the idea of therapy a little, but hopefully it's something fun that is kind of bringing up some of that nostalgia. And yeah, so I think we're glad people are listening, and I feel pretty encouraged every time I see that people actually are, and people respond to the episodes and stuff like that. So pretty exciting for me for sure.
Good time to say that if you are interested in chatting with us, you don't have to have gone to our youth group. But if you are interested in chatting with us, feel free to reach out. We have multiple ways to do that. We have a Discord server now. Check out the liner
Oh,
notes.
that's right.
I just tried. We'll see. But you can always get us on Twitter or email us, and we'd be happy to chat with you, whether it's about your youth group experience or if there's some topic you want to chat about that you're passionate about. Let's go. Let's do it. Why not?
And yeah, and just in case if you're interested in reaching out, it might be the simplest way is isurviveyouthgroup@gmail.com.
Yeah.
I say it at the end of every show too, but isurviveyouthgroup@gmail.com. Shoot us an email. Hopefully, if you don't hear back from us, maybe find us on Twitter. Because I check the email quite often, but we do get a lot of weird spam. So hopefully it doesn't end up in the spam. We get people like motivational speakers who like want to be on the podcast, and I'm like, I don't think they have anything to do with youth group. I think they're just those spam emails that are like, let me be on your podcast. And one guy was like, thought leadership. I'm like, there's no thought leadership happening here, bud.
Mm, you're right. It's whatever the opposite of thought leadership is, that's what's happening
Exactly.
here. So, anyway, Caleb, thank you for all your work this year. It's been super fun, and we continue to keep chatting. So, really appreciate the time we get to share together. And for everyone listening, thank you for doing so. We hope you enjoy a nice holiday season, and we'll see you back in the new year.
I want to break in and quickly remind everyone that the views and opinions expressed on this episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s may not be held by or even approved of by everyone appearing on this episode. One of the goals of this show is to give everyone a safe space to share their opinions and thoughts on deeply personal matters of faith. We are not looking to start an argument, but instead we want to let people share how they feel. During our interviews and discussions, we may not represent every point of view on a given subject, and we understand that this may be frustrating at times, but it is the nature of a podcast discussion with a limited amount of time. We also know and want to acknowledge that our memories of events that happened 25 to 30 years ago may not be 100% accurate. We assume everyone's best intentions as they share how they remember the experience of their youth. Now, back to the show.
All right, we are joined again by our good friends Troy and Meleah. This was a little bit, actually not a little bit, very impromptu, given that we were supposed to record and then that guest ended up being sick and not able to record. So we are happily joined by Troy and Meleah again, who are willing to come on and talk about Christmas memories and Christmas experiences from their youth and in the church and youth group and everything. We also have a couple of comments we threw up on Twitter just to help get some content so this episode isn't 8 minutes long. But thanks so very much for joining us, Troy and Meleah. It's really good to see you again.
You bet.
Nice to see you, Scott.
This is brought to you by
Thank
Mac
you.
and Cheese Monday night. Because we didn't have to think about what to make for dinner. Monday nights are easy.
There you go. There you go. We caught you on a good night. So, well, hey, thanks again for jumping in here with us. And this will be a conversation amongst the four of us. There's no like interview style here or anything. So it's Christmas time. We're recording this a few weeks before Christmas, so we're all in the mood, I think. And
Oh, was I supposed to be in the Christmas mood?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You have your
Sorry.
flannel
You're just-
on. You're good, Caleb.
Yep.
We did decorating for our church this weekend, and we were like helping out, and like one of the lights turned on and it started like flashing like annoyingly Christmassy, and I was like, I'm already mad at that tree and its Christmas spirit. My 13-year-old was like, Dad, you really have problems, don't you? I'm like, I'm gonna go throw up, and just left.
So, are you a no Christmas before Thanksgiving person then?
Oh yeah, I'm like offended by neighbors who have stuff up before Christmas and no Christmas music, and I don't care how late Thanksgiving was. No, there's no Christmas music until Thanksgiving. And then once
Sheesh.
it happens, that's great. But I would even, if I was really, really in charge, I'd say there's no Christmas music until the Sunday after Thanksgiving. If I really had my druthers. Because that's the start of Advent. That's when we should
Right.
start Christmas.
Oh, okay, all right. We probably fall, I don't know if we are like dogmatic about it, but we tend to go shopping because we do a real Christmas tree. And so
Yep,
Sure.
same.
you don't want to keep that up for 2 months. So we tend to do it after Thanksgiving. So it just kind of it reinforces that. But this year, we were at Hy-Vee with the youngers, and Micah found eggnog on sale, and it was
Ooh.
oh man, I don't know. It was middle December at the latest. It might have even been a little earlier than that. And he's like, eggnog! He'd been waiting all year for it. He loves eggnog. And so we had to get eggnog, and that started part of Christmas a little early this year.
Yeah.
You said middle of December. I'm assuming you meant middle of
I
November.
did mean middle of November.
Okay. Wow, that is really early.
Yeah. So we are on like our 6th jug of eggnog by now.
Jug.
Yeah.
Jug.
Well, various sizes.
Carton,
I feel.
bottle. We got the good stuff last night. The Autumnwood
Mm.
Farms eggnog that comes in the glass jar.
Mm-hmm.
It's epic. And our son is also all about the nutmeg and the grater and grating the fresh nutmeg on
Oh
top of his
yeah,
eggnog, just like a little foodie.
he is your kid.
Oh
Holy
my
moly.
gosh.
Good for him. I was gonna say you guys are foodie enough. I'm surprised you don't make your own eggnog sometimes.
We have, and I've been hunting down the pasteurized eggs, but they weren't at the store the other day when I looked.
I figured that was why you didn't have your own
Yeah.
homemade eggnog.
But it
So
was our son's idea to store the nutmeg on the front of the refrigerator because we have a magnetic spice holder, and so
sure.
that one is easy access. You can just open the fridge and you can grab that nutmeg right on the door.
So it is kind of funny to see, not to bring it back on topic, but how our children are developing their Christmas rhythms and memories and such. And a lot of it has to do with food and family, but
Hmm.
the presents are almost, I mean, they're not a real focus. Like I remember when I was a kid, the we would be counting how many presents were under the tree,
Hmm.
December 1st. We would keep tally and make sure that my sister didn't have more than me and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
And I we barely even have presents under the tree most of the years. For one, we can't put any food under there, the dog will get it. But they are interested in presents, but it's not the focus of the month like it was
Hmm.
kind of for us of shopping, and they're more about activities and food and that sort
Yeah.
of thing.
And sometimes we'd literally just pull out like two or three presents and we'd open them, and then there'd be like a day later, and then we'd pull out a few more. And so instead of this marathon of unwrapping, which I really don't enjoy the marathon of the
Mm.
unwrapping, and then everyone's trying to get it done as fast as they can, like it's this task to check off the list of the day before you can do the next thing. I like this
Yep.
very like slow, leisure, savored pace.
That's interesting. I was gonna ask. Let's discuss the theology behind opening presents before or after Christmas Eve. Are you, are you all a Christmas Eve family or a Christmas Day family?
We are practical. We're kind of forced into it. Maleah's birthday is right near Christmas, and so we try to keep that as separate as we can. But then we have to try to figure out how to fit in Christmas with her parents, Christmas with my parents, our own Christmas, Christmas with my sister and her family, so
Mm-hmm.
we can end up with a few numbers of days. And with my sister and her husband running a church, they're not usually available on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes I'm a tech person, so oftentimes I'm not terribly busy the last week of the year. The office is kind of shut down, and my mom was working in the school system for a long time, so we tend to do our Miller Christmases the week between Christmas and New Year's anyway. So it's not
Sure.
that we don't really have a theology on our side anyway. It's just more of convenience and practicality.
Theology was a strong word for this, this topic, of course. But Caleb, what about you? Are you guys Christmas Eve or Christmas Day?
So my family is historically Christmas Eve, and I don't know if I think the theology around it
Oh.
is you go to the Christmas Eve service and your presents are after that or before that, depending on when it is. But that's something that was passed down from my mother's parents. I mean, that was like a real strong thing because it has happened. So that's what my parents always want. And then it has caused some tension because my wife's family is really complicated. There's multiple mixed families. And so you're not just balancing a calendar of a couple people, but you're balancing like the calendar of like six families on that side sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
trying to get everyone available can be really tough. And so there was a year where it was like the only day that they could really do it was Christmas Eve. So they really wanted that. And my parents, there was a tension. And I know you think you have a lot of Christmases. Let me tell you, at minimum, we have about six because we do. I mean, and that is why I think I'm a bit of no Christmas stuff before the Sunday after Thanksgiving because by the
Isn't that called Hanukkah?
I mean, it is we celebrate the 12 days of Christmas. It's unbelievable. Like it just goes on and on. And I like, there was one year where we were on like number 8, and I was just like, I just hate
Yeah.
Christmas now, and I just it's too much. And so we try and fit it in. So I think my family has a real strong one. My wife's family is a little less. It's more just when people are available, we try and do our best. So
Well,
that
that
was a
fits in.
really long answer. Sorry.
No,
How about
that
Epiphany
fits.
too?
Epiphany, yes. That was a tradition that came to understand once my wife and I got married. And she comes from a very strong Lutheran background. So I was like, "What's Epiphany?" And for our wedding, which was January 1st, we had stars as a theme. So the Epiphany thing is pretty strong for us.
I don't think I knew what Epiphany was back in high school. I,
No.
like I said in the previous podcast, we were a non-denominational Pentecostal, and so we never, I don't think anyway, we did any Christmas services or Christmas Eve services. So we always went with my family, my grandparents, to the Lutheran church or the Methodist church, but somewhere where they had a candlelight service where we could hold on to the candles and warm them up with our hands. I don't know if you guys ever did that. My grandpa taught me that to warm the candle up with my hand, and then I could start to shape it and turn it into a J or maybe just an L or maybe even squigglies if we were there for a long time. That was the highlight of my church service for the year for the Christmas season was being able to play with a candle.
That's
Huh.
your theology, huh?
Yeah, I've always been a
Play
bit of a
with
pyrotechnic, but that was
my theology is play with fire.
Yeah, when my wife and I started dating, got serious. We would be attending all the services together, and we wanted to do our own thing and also our family things. Maybe I'm doing my immediate family a disservice. I don't think we really did much church on Christmas Eve. We definitely did church on Christmas, but with the advent of churches being so big, they have Christmas services on like the 22nd and the 23rd and everything, and I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. On my wife's side, though, her dad, who really loved his church and was very committed, and it was great because that church taught me a lot about worship in general and also worship around the holidays. I'm pretty sure they'd go to church Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and probably some other few times during that week. There's a service for every little celebration there. So it was quite the different than my upbringing, which was, hey, we'll just figure out an hour to go and that'll be it.
I definitely grew up going to the Christmas Eve service and the Christmas service, and I remember multiple times going to whatever the latest night candlelight service was with my dad
Yes.
because my dad and I are night owl type people of our family,
Mm.
and so we were always up for some 10 p.m. Christmas service somewhere with a candle.
What about activities at church for Christmas? Do you guys remember having pageants? Were you in any sort of plays? Was there, I mean, the church lighting for Silent Night? Am I getting that right? I'm a terrible
That's
Christian.
the general song that you light your candles to is Silent Night.
Yeah, okay. There's the Silent Night candle thing, but I mean, what else do we remember about kind of church activities around Christmas time?
There's two that come to mind that I wasn't involved in because one was, when are you going to get tickets to go to the singing Christmas tree? Have you been to the singing Christmas tree?
No, this is the first
No.
I've heard of it.
Oh, okay. So there are some churches that do a singing Christmas tree where it's a choir shaped like a Christmas tree. There's a structure that they have created to make, yes, just row upon row upon row of people in the shape of a Christmas tree. So it's a Christmas tree shaped choir of humans. And many times they would also have a live nativity. And so they have this live nativity going on in the side with the donkey and the cow and the sheep and the Mary and Jesus and Joseph and the wise men and the shepherds and everything. And then they flash over here and you see this lights completely light up this Christmas tree shaped choir. and then they sing, and then they go back to the live nativity. And it was the thing to do is to go see the singing Christmas tree. I'm sure you could even Google it. I think
Is
it
this
was
now or is this back?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
when I was a kid. I
Really?
remember going to, I think it's an Assemblies of God church, is what I've heard when I was talking to some other people at our church currently, and I asked them, "Have you heard about the singing Christmas tree?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah." And I was gonna do it, but then they stopped it when I got old enough to do the singing Christmas tree.
It sounds like someone like fell off the top and hurt themselves and they can't do it anymore.
Right? Like, I don't know about code,
The
like how
topper.
that could be up to safety code to have so many rows of people.
Were they on scaffolding or something?
Probably.
I think this is legitimately the first I've ever heard this.
Yeah.
I can buy tickets to a couple places in Lakeville. Apparently,
Oh,
I just
Caleb,
looked it
my
up.
Caleb,
gosh.
add this to your calendar this month. I know it's not busy yet.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. No chance. But I'm glad to have learned about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, multiple places. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, all right. Now add it to the list, I guess.
yep.
I guess.
If you're ever bored.
That is very different than I've never been as much of a choir person as my wife, unless I'm listening to the choir.
Nice.
But yeah, I was gonna say that the opposite of that is what we did because my friend, I think my friend Josh Irwin and I somehow talked my church into letting us do on one of the Sundays before Christmas, into letting us do, I don't remember if we lip synced it or actually sang it, but I'm pretty sure we did Yo Ho Ho in church from DC Talk.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure most of the congregation did not know how to receive
What
that.
was going on?
I don't know that they knew what rap was anyway, but I also know that there was plenty of, like Bill Goddard and stuff back in that day where they were just
Hmm.
generally distrustful of anything that wasn't a hymn anyway. And so, that I think we got away with it because we were teenagers, but we definitely got,
They just wanted to appease you a little bit.
we definitely got some looks.
My kid was never like in a Christmas pageant. The most that we did, he'd like the children's choir would come up and sing a couple cute songs or whatever, and then read a little scripture verse. Like, was anyone ever in a pageant of sorts?
I was.
You were?
Yeah, I was one of the wise men at Bethlehem Baptist, ironically. So it's a pretty big deal. And we had to do now granted, Bethlehem's not, because that sanctuary is so big, they don't do a ton of like the 22nd, the 23rd. And I think Piper's probably a little dogmatic about it, probably is my guess. So, but I do remember being one of the wise men, and I distinctly remember that's about the only Christmas pageant I can remember being in. And I was pretty young, so this isn't a youth group memory by any means. And then we weren't. I think part of the reason I never was is we were always down at my grandparents for most of our Christmases. So like if they were gonna do it Christmas Eve, we weren't in the Twin Cities. We were out, we were down in Rochester. So,
Hmm.
but I do remember being in that one. So
We got a note from our friend Kylan on Twitter saying that he was Gilligan in a Christmas pageant once. And I feel like if we were good at like improv comedy, we'd come up with a situation where a Gilligan was in a Christmas pageant, but I'm too tired to try. So I'm interested to hear that story.
I just feel like we've already this is a teaser for next year's Christmas episode. I mean, it's time to have Kylan back on to explain being Gilligan. I'm so confused.
If this podcast can last an entire year, that's quite the feat. So we'll see. We'll see. How about like caroling? Meleah,
Oh,
you're a
yeah.
choir person. Were
Always
you a caroler?
caroling. We had a personal newlywed caroling experience because we were like, okay, let's go caroling. The person who lived in our home before us went to a care facility because they aged out of our house, and we bought it from their family. And so I thought, oh, wouldn't it just be so nice to say, to go caroling at their care facility? Let's do that, Troy. So I don't remember who else came with us, but we definitely rounded up more people. Do you remember this
Vaguely,
vaguely?
yeah.
Okay, and so I got it all coordinated with the care coordinator lady who was so nice and so welcoming of any groups who want to come carol. And I just tell her it's my husband and I and some of our friends. We want to come caroling, and I print up some music for us all. And we go caroling, and most of the people at the care facility loved it, except for one man who they were watching Ben-Hur, I think, and he was very angry that they paused the TV and he started cussing at us for coming to Carol at their care facility.
Wait. Was this person Caleb as an old person? Because
I do love Ben-Hur.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, so here we are going floor to floor to go caroling for the residents, and we go upstairs and they're watching a movie and they pause it, and he was not happy about that one bit. Do you remember this?
Vaguely.
Yeah.
I don't remember much. Most caroling I put out of my memory because most caroling is done out of doors, and I'm cold and I don't like it.
Well, I love
I
caroling. I think it's fun.
I frankly, Meleah, many years ago, again when we were in small group together, I think I remember you telling that story because this is like ringing a couple of
Maybe
bells.
you were there.
You might have even been like, "Hey, let's go do this as a group," and maybe we didn't. There wasn't enough interest.
You missed it, maybe.
I did. I think I
To
did.
go in my email archives. I might still have some.
We got another reply on our Twitter about this from Scott Frazier, Cameron Scott Frazier. Said, my youth group went caroling for Christmas, and right before we got to my house, I ran home and told my mom to give everyone a bar of soap once we finished. And she did.
How?
So I don't know what that means, but were they singing poorly? Did they smell bad?
Wash your mouth out with soap.
Wash it out.
Is it what's that Christmas movie with the bar of soap? A Christmas Story? Is it a reference to that?
Oh, that's right. Now see, Caleb, this is why we keep you on. You know all the pop culture references.
I don't know if that's right, and I really hate that movie. So
Pizza Luce had a Christmas Story inspired pizza last year, and it was so good that I've been thinking about it all year and wanting to get it back again. It had cream cheese and jalapeno peppers on, and I didn't know what else, but it was delicious.
Well, you should check. They probably have it.
They probably do.
They probably have it back.
Maybe I'll get it tomorrow for lunch.
I think you're right, Caleb. I think that has to be a Christmas Story reference because there is a bar of soap when he says the F word.
yeah, I mean, I just looked up. This is on the cuff here. I mean, I said Christmas caroling bar of soap. There's nothing. I mean, there's Christmas bars of soap, which I hate, but you know. I'm such a stooge. Holy cow.
Caleb, what do you like about Christmas?
I do love things about Christmas.
I know
will
you do.
say.
I know you do.
You like
We
what
can
it's
get into
done.
No. I love Christmas music. It's actually been one of my major complaints about our current church is that they don't do any Christmas music, and it drives me insane.
Really?
I hate it.
Zero Christmas music?
Yes,
I'm
like
literally scratching my head not understanding this, Caleb.
Yeah. Same.
I don't get it either. I've complained about it. The one song they've done, so we've been there a couple years and they did it on Sunday, this is the first time they've done a Christmas song not on like the last Christmas before or the last Sunday before Christmas. Mm-hmm. And the only song I've ever heard them do is this butchered version of Silent Night where it turns into something else halfway through. And it's not good. The band struggles with it because it's that huge change of pace. You go from this modern thing and then you've got to slow it back down to Silent Night, and nobody quite handles the transition well. And it drives me nuts. Our sermon this Sunday was on God being with us, and we didn't end the service with one of the hundreds of Christmas songs that have Emmanuel in them. Why?
Like Emmanuel?
Right. Yeah. There's so many great ones. So I do love I do love Christmas music. I will tell you right now, if you want a really modern, great Christmas album, you want to impress your friends about how hip you are, Brian Fallon did Night Divine. It's a Christmas album. He's from the Gaslight Anthem. It is a killer, like, new Christmas album. It's just doing the old ones, but the way he does it, it's great. I mean, I love good Christmas music. I've got some Christmas movies that I watch every year, whether anybody wants to watch them with me or not.
Which
So
ones
I
are
do
those?
have my things. What's that?
Which ones are they? Which are your Christmas
Yeah.
movies?
Yeah. So the greatest Christmas movie and maybe a top 5 movie of all time,
I know what you're
in
gonna
my
say.
opinion, is It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, it
Oh,
is
you're gonna
just
say Die Hard.
I thought this.
no. Die Hard isn't a Christmas movie. It came out in July.
Ooh, hot take.
It's not even a hot take. It came out in July. Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life is one of the greatest movies of all time. The Muppet Christmas Carol, by far and away the best version of A Christmas Carol,
That's the
and
one I
Michael
thought you were gonna
Caine's
say.
greatest performance ever. I mean, it is fantastic. I love The Muppet Christmas Carol. And then I do watch Charlie Brown Christmas, although it is a little depressing. I'm not going to lie, but I
Yeah.
still like it. And then there's 2 episodes of Batman the Animated Series that revolve around Christmas. Christmas with the Joker is fantastic. I watch that every year as well. I will be done now.
That's that's a good list. I mean, when Scott was asking about if we were in any Christmas pageants and stuff when we were younger, I feel like I was. I think I was, but I also might just be projecting myself into watching the Charlie Brown Christmas enough times and and having Linus say the whole story. Like I
That's
might
right.
just be remembering that.
So, Meleah, you might resonate with this being a choir person and also because of where you went to school. But my college puts on a huge Christmas fest every year, Christmas concert, and it's over now. It's always the first weekend in December, and it sells out. You know, St. Olaf doesn't, for all of its musical talent, St. Olaf has no money for the musical arts, and they still sing it in the gym. They still sing it in the gym, which is insane to me, but it is what it is.
I went to the Bethel one last week because
Oh, did you?
my mentee was in the Bethel choir singing.
So some of these colleges around town do this, and probably a lot of places do, but Bethel, St. Olaf, they're amongst the top ones of just, I'm not to be too over the top about it, but you know, you get a lot of talent there in terms
Yep.
of someone being able to sing. And at first I was like, no, this is dumb. I don't want to do this. Partly because I was a 18-year-old dummy, but also because too I was like, these songs that they're singing don't mean anything to me. And then by the time I was done, I was like, you know what, this is actually really darn good and appropriate for the season. Like I've said it on other episodes, they always end with Beautiful Savior, which will be sung at my funeral, and there are a lot of really intentional Christmas tunes that are not your, you know, American radio hits, right? They're from other countries, they're from different times, but they still have that Christmas message. So I'll still throw that on. And then the last thing I'll say about music, and I'll shut up, is a big tradition that we've adopted that I love very, very much is we do open our presents like a normal family on Christmas morning. And we, as we're opening Christmas presents and making breakfast, we put on the Christmas oratorio, which I don't remember who the composer is. Not even going to guess because I'll sound like an idiot. But it's a, you know, choral orchestral experience, and it's awesome, and we just blare it. And that's a tradition that my father-in-law had too. So those are some things we've adopted.
I like that idea.
You guys are way more cultured than I am. The biggest thing that happened to me in my entire high school slash college experience regarding around Christmas and Christmas music was the introduction of Happy Christmas. That was the best thing ever. Because finally, and I did like, I have nothing against, like, Amy Grant's Christmas album was a staple in our house. You know, we had all the sort of CCM favorite Christmas albums, but when I discovered things like Happy Christmas and Reliant K's you know, Christmas album, like that's on repeat, or that has been on repeat for like 20 years. And only recently, when Love Thy Nerd Radio now does a Christmas stream 24/7 since Thanksgiving, then I can listen to all that weird, crazy, you know, the not traditional, the anti-traditional
Sure.
music. Still the same, many of the same songs, although there's lots of originals, but it's the different, it's the anti-traditional music. So we balance each other. My wife and I balance each other out in that regard. She's all
There you
the
go.
choral stuff.
And the Porter's Gate. They have a really great Christmas album.
Over the Rhine, Noel. I mean, Lindsey Sterling maybe a little bit, but
There's some really great Christmas albums from the last 20 years. I mean, it has. I mean, and the reality is it's partially a moneymaker, I'm sure, but like
Hmm.
there have been some really really good ones. Citizens and Saints, although I think on their they change their name every couple of years, so sometimes they're Citizens, sometimes they're Citizens and Saints. Their Christmas album is also really really good, and there's a couple like really standouts from the last couple of years that are really worth listening to. For reference, I have in my personal Christmas list, I have 668 songs in my Christmas list. It's over 6 hours of music.
You
So.
you aren't a Grinch. That's nice. That's
I'm
nice to
not.
know.
I'm not a Grinch. I'm just a Grinch around people.
There's a distinction there that we
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
get
I don't know if I
right.
still have well, maybe I do have it on my Christmas list. I think it's a combination of ours, but I think I only have around 300. So
So from that Happy Christmas, I will say the standout track by far is the "Oh Holy Night" by. Technically, it's by Seven Day Jesus, but Brian McSweeney's. I think that's how you say his last name. His vocals on that are it's really hard to find. It's either CD or YouTube, but "Oh Holy Night" by Seven Day
oh, I'm
Jesus. Woo,
fairly
who
certain I
duggies?
Do
have
we
that.
have that?
I'm fairly
I'm
certain I do.
looking through the
Yeah.
list here.
Fairly certain I do.
Yeah, it's not available on streaming as far as I know. So
I
you
have
have
to admit I am a Luddite when it comes to streaming. I don't pay streaming. I just buy music. Oh, I
yep,
don't do
that's what I
vinyl. I'm
take too.
not like I'm not cool like you guys.
It's all right, Troy. That makes two of us.
I I'm pretty sure that I have not put Happy Christmas on her
I think that's right.
because she does not share the same appreciation for the variety of musical styles in Christmas music
Hmm.
that I do. So
Okay, volume two of Happy Christmas is on my phone.
Oh, there you go. It's on volume
See,
one though.
psych. No, I think some people need to have Christmas in a very certain way, including the music. And if it's not done, then it's not Christmas time. You know what? That's fine. Traditions are fine. But I think over a lifetime, there's been a lot of progress
Yeah.
in on the music side.
I
yeah.
know
So
multiple times it's felt like the season of Christmas is too busy that it gets done and I think, when did I listen to Christmas music? I barely listen to it. And so
But you don't listen to a lot of music.
I suppose.
Like you're not the type to just have music or you're not the type to intentionally put on music when you're doing something. So it tends to be me. And so I'm usually picking, if you're going to be around, I'll try not to pick the Happy Christmas, but it'll probably be something like Over the Rhine or Noel or something that I like, you know. So
Sure.
it won't, it's probably not going to be Bethel's Festival of
Yeah, you're
Christmas
not playing
recording. Yeah,
Bethel's Festival of Christmas anytime lately.
probably not.
Come on, Troy.
Last week, I started listening to one Christmas song before I started my workday, but that lasted about 3 days.
Meleah, you and I are the same in that regard. I don't have music on a lot, and then all of a sudden I'm like, "What? Where's the time I have to listen to music? Oh, it's gone."
Yeah,
I just don't have the capacity during my workday to do that. But
yeah, same.
I am curious in all of this, just kind of bouncing around this conversation. Like, are there things we approach differently about the Christmas story or even Christmas? I use the term theology beforehand very loosely and in a joking way, but in all seriousness, are there things that we approach differently and why? Like, I'm not saying like, was Jesus born of a virgin? That's pretty heavy inherent theological
Well, you
stuff
want to go
to the
there.
idea of
Okay.
Christmas. No, I'm not. I don't mean that heavy, but like, okay, so I'll give you an example. Our church right now is in Isaiah and doing a kind of lead up prophecy wise in Isaiah to Jesus. And forever, I was like, oh yeah, that you know all the prophecies are mean Jesus, which I still believe that that's true. But also too, they could also mean Israel in a sense. Like there's some I started through seminary, I started to hear some different interpretations of that didn't really derail anything per se, but they just kind of made it a little bit more rich. I don't think it's always entirely like Jesus being the only answer on something like that. So that's something that I found to be a little bit intriguing when I learned about it.
There's a couple different things that come to mind. One of them is I feel like as a child, they talk about Christmas is when Jesus was born, right? And then you learn a little bit more that maybe Christmas wasn't the day that Jesus was born. And then your mind is blown for a while, like, wait, what? No, but my books all say Jesus was born at Christmas, which is precisely December 25th. Um, so learning that piece unraveled a little bit of stuff. Also noticing that Jesus isn't Caucasian. That one was a big one for me. That Jesus is
Nice.
not white. And so that's been something I've been more aware of over really, I don't know how long, but not as long as I wish to admit that it has been true. Um, and I remember our oldest son was doing a slideshow about Christmas and the nativity scene, and I remember looking over his shoulder and saying, "You need to edit the color of Jesus's skin because Jesus wasn't white." And so he's like, "Mom, but that's a lot of work." Like, well, you need to do this because it's not accurate. We need to portray this more accurately. And Mary also wasn't white, so she also needs to get edited on this slideshow. And so that's something that I notice now that I didn't notice when I was younger. Another piece I think about is as a women's ministry leader, I remember talking to the women about the already not yet theology, and I was fired up about the theology of Jesus is here. We have God in our hearts and in our lives, but that full sanctification process, glorification, sanctification, whatever you want to call it, not all of that has happened yet, and we still have brokenness around us. So Jesus is here and actively redeeming and restoring, but at the same time, we still have this brokenness. And so that was something that I spoke about as a women's ministry leader at one of the quintessential women's Christmas events, because you have to have a women's Christmas event. If you're in women's ministry, like that is for many people, that's like the pinnacle, and you have really good food and you have speaking time and you have some singing together. And I have recipes that I have gotten because I have attended women's ministry Christmas events that I still use, like artichoke dip with some red bell peppers in it. Troy knows that one.
Mhm.
And another women's ministry Christmas event, we did a Christmas around the world, and different people who had different cultural backgrounds made a little table and display, and they brought items from the country that they were representing and they talked about it, and it was like a mini Festival of Nations celebration. I don't know if you're familiar with the Festival of Nations, which sadly is now defunct, but
Oh,
it was the celebration of all these different cultures all together in one location. And that was definitely one of my highlights of a women's ministry Christmas event, doing Christmas around the world and eating the foods as a foodie, eating different foods from different countries, learning how to write your name in Chinese or eat Dutch food or talk about ice skates or learning more about the different cultures. That was really fun.
I forgot about the women's ministry Christmas events.
That's a big deal. And it's too
Yeah,
cold
and
to dress fancy, but you have to dress fancy because you're a woman and you have to figure out how do you look nice when it's too cold and you just want to wear sweatpants.
you should start one at your church and just sweatpants allowed. Just let people come as they are.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, it's interesting how the experience of Christmas has changed. And I was while she was talking, I was thinking about the types of theology that we heard, I guess, when I was younger, like in youth group and in church in the 90s. And I feel like there was always it was always very focused on the reason for the season, like reminding yourself and making sure that you don't forget. And, it was hyper focused almost. And I guess I don't notice that as much anymore. I don't know if it's just because we're in a different context or if the kids are in a Christian school and so it's already kind of baked in, or if we've just been doing this for 40 plus years now and we don't need to be reminded anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not noticing it, but
Well, to reference Caleb's church experience recently, our church is more of a Emmanuel, God with us type church.
yeah, more contemplative,
Reflective
reflective.
and but just more of like Christmas is year round. You don't just celebrate Christ in December.
Mhm.
We are constantly talking about Jesus and what has Jesus done and how does Jesus behave and how can we emulate that ourselves.
Yeah, that's different from a little bit of a liturgical church or something that steers away from pointing everything to Jesus. I think I said in Erica's episode that the church I go to is very similar to Meleah, like and I don't, again, not disagreeing or anything, but you can totally tell, like, all right, this is always coming back to the same thing all the time, which is all well and good, but just, sometimes it gets a little repetitive in that regard too, so.
The only thing I was thinking about was the idea that the wise men probably didn't visit Jesus in the manger. That's something I just never caught. I don't think that was like a thing, but it's much more like, I mean, it seems that they visited when he was a young child and that sort of thing. And like, I just never caught that because every Christmas pageant, the wise men show up and, they're always there and they bring their gifts and, that sort of thing. So I think that's one thing that I've always did that I think was later in life. I was like, oh, this story doesn't quite work. It's later. And so that was one that I just put together later in life. It hasn't really changed any of my theology around Christmas or anything like that, but it is something that came to mind because I was thinking about our little, nativity sets that we have, and the wise men are there in every single one of them, and it's like, oh, that doesn't actually fit, but that's not a big one by any means, and that's not a big big intellectual shocker.
The wise men are integral to the Christmas experience because that's where we get the gifts from.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Like otherwise, there wouldn't be all these presents under the Christmas tree, and we wouldn't have advertisements for a month and a half, and we wouldn't have sales and Black Friday.
Yeah.
It's their fault.
Something I've been thinking about, like along that lines of the commercialism of Christmas, is the Advent calendar concept, and thinking about how many people are actively counting down to celebrate Christmas as Christians know it, and thinking about the popularity of Advent calendars. And we started a really fun one this year. Troy bought the escape room version of an advent calendar. Did you bring
Whoa.
it out here?
Oh,
Oh,
I didn't
he
bring
was
it
gonna
out.
bring it out here.
The listeners can't see it anyway, but it's the
Yeah.
Advent calendar. It's a board game company that does board game versions of escape rooms. The Advent calendar, so every day you've got a little puzzle to solve.
There you
And
go.
we haven't done many days obviously yet, but it's been a good thing to get the family together and just doing something. It feels like it could be a nice Christmas memory because it forces you to be in the same space with the rest of your
Mm.
family for more than 2 minutes. It doesn't take long to pop out a chocolate and eat it. So
A poor quality chocolate generally.
Yeah, no doubt.
that's the real reason why we don't do them anymore is because we've turned our children into chocolate snobs.
I found some fun ones in the past, but by and large, they're either out of stock by the time I think about buying advent calendars or just not exciting.
Where our children will have very different recollections of their Christmas when they do their own podcasts in 30 years that talking about their have parents forcing bad chocolate on them.
Yeah.
I asked
Yeah.
Micah
Scarred them.
at Target if I should buy an elf on the shelf.
Oh,
Oh,
Oh man.
oh, here we go.
It was a hard
Oh
pass. He was
man.
like, "No, mom, no." I'm like,
Oh.
but it's only 34.99 today.
Just for the
Are
elf?
you an elf on the shelf, people?
No, no way.
That was
I do not want my kid thinking there's an elf creeping around watching them the whole time.
Right? That's
It's
creepy. That okay,
it
that
is.
makes me think of Santa too. I have zero pictures of my children as babies or toddlers sitting on Santa's lap.
Oh, is that because if you switch the letters around, he's named Satan? Is
was Santa ever a thing in your family? It was never really a thing in our family.
When I was little, I have pictures in my photo albums of me sitting on Santa's lap. But
Okay.
for me, I'm like, the whole Santa with my child sitting on their lap, it kind of creeps me out. So maybe we don't have to do Santa
Yeah, I'm
like
not
that.
sure why we didn't. And maybe we just got to the age where we realized that Santa was ridiculous. But we had my grandmother would go to the flea market and she would find just weird things at a flea market for cheap, fun things. And then those were kind of our Santa presents that they would come from the
mm,
flea instead of Santa, but those would be kind of the presents that were not the presents that are obviously from your parents, and that would
And
be our tradition.
what's one of your favorite ones?
From the flea,
Yes,
oh wow. I
a
mean,
programming
they
book.
they typically weren't what I would call memorable. They were they were little trinkets that they found around, but they would bring them, and we've done this with our kids. So we're passing it along, but she would find little not magic trips, but like the little puzzles that you have to solve, like trying to get the
hmm.
metal chains out from each other,
I
or
love those
Sure.
brain teasers.
yeah. So one year she found the horseshoe ones, and uh,
Oh
and
yeah.
I was one of the only ones that figured out how to do it, and so I was taunting the rest of my family the whole rest of Christmas on trying to get it. And it was fun for me.
Also, Santa's actually that's a pretty big theological change for me. Because when my kids were born, now we were raised like no Santa, it's not okay. We were at least prepped that you don't break the news to the neighbors. Like it's really inappropriate to do that. So we were raised that, but like I really upset my mother-in-law because I was like, no Santa in this house because I'm not lying to my kids. And that was always my reason. At this point, I've softened on it. I'm still not doing Santa because I just have no affection for it. But that is something that I was really hardline on for a long time with my own kids. And I think I inherited a little of that from my family. But I have passed down one Santa tradition to my kids. And that is one more movie that we do watch, we try and watch every year is Santa Claus versus the Devil. It's a 1959 film, but we don't watch that version. We watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version, and it is fantastic.
Amazing.
Oh, put that one down.
Yeah, Santa Claus versus the Devil.
Where do you get
You
this
know,
one?
You can get it on Prime, I think. You can find it on YouTube. It's not their official channel, so a little pirated, but you can do that as
Our
well.
children will be so happy that they'll
I
be
love
forced
MST3K.
they'll be forced to watch
It's
it.
it's out there.
I've used it as punishment so far. They do not yet find the humor in it. But
Oh, I have a sick
they
child
will.
upstairs. Literally, that's what she's been watching for the last 3 hours because it's something that we can have on in the background and it doesn't require constant
full
attention from the
attention.
other children who are doing chores and stuff. So,
I have one more Troy grandma story.
I was actually just going to ask about
No, as I think about Christmas, I always think food. Food really turns it into Christmas for me, like treats. And we have customary things that I like to eat as a kid. Definitely chocolate fudge. Like, absolutely got to have chocolate fudge. But Troy's family is into sugar cookies, which I'm sure he'll talk about in a little bit. But when I was first pregnant with my firstborn, I remember being at Troy's parents' house while his Grandma Mary, beautifully lovely woman sat on a bar stool tending the pan that had squirrel parts in it, cooking
It
on
was
the
normal,
stove.
like it was legs and thighs, you know? It sound creepy.
No,
All right,
squirrel
well,
parts.
it's only
Squirrel
kind
parts.
of creepy.
Squirrel parts are creepy in a pan in the
It's the
kitchen.
same parts that you would get from a chicken, just from a squirrel.
But as a pregnant woman, you can get a little queasy around some things.
You were not
I
a fan of that long
I
before.
had to step out of the home and get some fresh winter air and get away from the squirrel, which gets softened in a baking soda and water bath the night before. Otherwise, it's gamey.
You don't say.
Yeah. And I also was unwilling to ever sample it. And I also told Troy if he eats the squirrel, which he did for Christmas multiple times, I would not be
Tradition.
kissing him for a little while because, like, at least the rest of the day. Because I just couldn't kiss a mouse that had eaten squirrel that day.
I'm pretty sure if there was ever a serious test of our relationship of whether we were gonna stick together long term or not, it was the first time that she came home for Christmas and learned that our Christmas was venison and squirrel. That,
Yeah.
that was the point where she's like, "This is my chance. Do I take it?"
You had, Meleah, you had an out.
I'm-
You had a legitimate out, but here you are. Well, I didn't think squirrel leg was coming on this podcast, but there you go. Sounds delicious. Also sounds very Western Wisconsin, to be quite
It
honest.
very
So,
do you guys have anything
Shots fired.
from your childhood Christmas that you had to disavow?
Any questionable food items? Do you eat pickled herring, lutefisk, any of those?
None.
see, I had 5 Christmases overseas in Europe, so like that whole traditional food thing kind of got interrupted because it was very back then. It was very difficult to get like even like a real turkey or something. So we had a lot of ham, which I don't. Maybe that's why I don't like ham. But like we got very like that's all we had access to, and so we would come together as American families overseas and try to emulate a Christmas meal, and they did a pretty darn good job. But I think I've had to disavow my selfish nature. We got a box one year for Christmas from my grandma, and I was convinced it was a Sega CD. And remember Sega CD? Shout out Sega CD. And it was Encyclopedia Britannica, and I was so mad.
So smart. It must be because of Grandma's gift.
Don't know if I ever opened it. Maybe I did. The books themselves. But no, I had to get over myself pretty quickly. I don't know of any traditions like that, though, that were like super old school or looked down upon.
It was an adjustment for me when I, left my house, and then I realized that people traditionally had, I guess, turkey for these special occasions. I'm like, but turkey's not good. Why would you do that?
Christmas ham with cherries and pineapples.
Get some nice braised venison and some fried squirrel. Why don't you?
Turkey's got to be better than squirrel.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Oh,
Squirrel's dark
I think
meat.
you're cooking your turkey wrong.
that's right.
It did take. I don't know that anybody but my grandma could make squirrel taste good. She worked very hard on it and did a lot of work to tenderize that meat. But I loved it. It was good.
I just want to clarify. This was just like a squirrel she found in the yard.
No, this was my grandpa and I. This was our job, was to go get the squirrel, and so we would have hunted for the squirrel. That's as serious of a hunter as I've ever been. The venison was all him, and that was over,
Sure.
Thanksgiving. He was the one that I would sometimes be called upon to go help pull in the deer. He would give me a Snickers from his a frozen Snickers, so it was really more of a Snickers popsicle. But I would get a little treat for helping physically pull, and I was not that helpful. I mean, really, but I didn't. I was a pretty scrawny kid, but I would help him get the deer, and that's about as much as I ever did.
Did you ever like pass up on a squirrel? You're like, no, too skinny. Like we no meat on that bone.
I mean, they're all pretty skinny in December.
I still just remember this visual of that pan, and then it's in the oil, and the little legs are in there, and I'm like, I gotta go step outside.
My children will never know that.
Yeah, as a foodie, Troy, that's really something you should try and do again.
Yeah, but
I
that would
mean,
require me to go out in the cold and try and shoot a squirrel.
Get a squirrel permit.
squirrel permit,
That is that is
one
not
per family.
not something
Yeah.
from my grandparents.
Squirrels.
I have carried many things from my grandparents, and that is not going to be one of them. Of going out and getting the wild game.
Be selective about it, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll
So,
we'll honor them in different ways. We
It's
still do
like
the
the
flea
grandma's
market, so
cookies.
yeah, we do have a cookie, a blending of families. So my grandma had sort of a special sugar cookie recipe. It's much more floury and thick, and
yep.
the focus is really just on the icing that you put on the top. And her family is a much more traditional sugar cookie that actually has amounts of sugar in it. And so we either end up making both for our family, or we make hers, and then my mom's Christmas gift to me is making my grandma's Christmas cookies. And I just
Nice.
get pails of them that I put in the cellar for the next 2 months that I work through methodically.
Nice. That's a good one. That's a sweet one.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that counteracts the squirrel
There you
stuff.
go.
That's
I've
great.
redeemed myself.
That's really
My note says Christmas with arrows to squirrels and arrows to cookies.
The Christmas of my youth can apparently be summed up by squirrels and cookies.
Oh, that's not so bad.
Well, they're consumed though.
No, I was gonna say I don't know if you guys had any traditions around opening up gifts. We had everybody takes turns, but that's just to make sure that everybody is equal and gets the same, share or whatever. And so we were kind of similar to Meleah's family in that it was a bit of a, it was a lot. There was a time, we've got a certain number of presents and only so much time before the sun goes down or whatever to
The
open them up.
food is in the oven. It's gonna get done.
Yep, you gotta
Yep.
eat. But a friend of mine, their family had a tradition that I always liked. We've never quite done it that way, but their tradition was when somebody opens a present, then you have to use that present. So if it's a sweater, you got to go put the sweater on. If it's a food item, everybody gets to sample the food. If it's a board game, you got to play the board game.
Wow.
So it's a bit much in that it does take all day, but I think it also had the effect, and it has had the effect in our family of doing a version of that, of reducing the number of presents and putting more of the focus of the present on the person that you're buying it for. And it's more like I know you as a person. I know your personality. I know what you like. And when I saw this, I really thought that this would be perfect for you. And so I think it tends to make the presents a little, even though there's not as many of them, they're still as meaningful, I think.
Or even more meaningful because you're having
Sure.
a shared experience with everything.
I've heard families like everyone just goes at it and rips open their own presents all at the same time, and you're done in 10 minutes, and that seems a little, maybe with bigger family that's the only way to do it, but we've always been very intentional going around so each person has a chance to enjoy their gift. Maybe not to play a whole board game per se, but to at least enjoy it, and so maybe the gift giver explains why they gave it to him, that sort of thing.
My father does his own version of that. Where, like, if you give him a book, he'll like be sitting there like that's then he's just sitting there reading the book. And he'd be like, "Did you know this?" And like you're like, my mom will be like, "No, no, come on, let's vote.
We're still opening.
We're finishing this." Or
Yeah.
he will, if you get him a CD, all of a sudden he'll kind of wander away, and all of a sudden you'll start to hear the CD coming from the study, and it's like, no, we're still not done. Come back, and
Yes.
he'll be out there with the booklet, and so he'll be poring over it. So my dad does his own version of
Yeah.
it, and just the rest of us don't participate.
We're gonna have that this year because our middle child, we're getting him the Stormlight Archive books, which are very large, and he
Very
read the
nice.
first two, and he'll end up getting three. Hopefully, he doesn't listen to this podcast. I'll blow this surprise. Don't worry, he won't.
Spoiler.
But
Well, beep it
yeah,
out.
That's
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that as soon as he opens it up, he'll be on the couch, just nose in the book and totally tuning everybody else out for the rest of so we're gonna have to make sure that's like the last present.
There you go. The
Definitely.
finale. I got through the first book. I really tried to get through the second book, and I just couldn't do it. Like, I love me some good fantasy, but holy Hannah, there's a lot of pages in those books.
There are a lot of things. That's why I was like, we need to own these because if I'm gonna read them too, there's no way that I can. You
Yeah.
can finish them in like 3 or 4 days if he's not terribly
Jeez.
busy. And I'm like, maybe I'll finish them in 2025. That's
Yeah,
an
exactly.
audacious goal, really.
Yeah, exactly. We'll say we've kept you tonight for a while, but this has been super fun just to reminisce. Any other final Christmas thoughts that we didn't get to?
I'll throw one out there while you're thinking. The only thing I could think of youth group related, and I don't know if we ever did it in youth group, was white elephant stuff. I know I did it in college.
Yeah.
But I was trying to think of like, is there a Christmas game from youth group? And I couldn't think of one. The only thing I could think of was white elephant. My kids do that in there. They have a big white elephant thing that they do. And we're talking like 100 kids. Like they break into semi-smaller groups, but it's still like 30 kids in a group. I mean, it's really, really big. They combine a couple of the age groups together. But that was the only real youth group game that I could think of related to Christmas, which I thought was pretty interesting because you would think there'd be more ridiculousness around youth group Christmas, but that was the only one I could think of.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same for me. I know we did. We would have had like a youth group party or whatever, but
Mhm.
Hmm.
I really think it was more just an excuse to get together and hang out.
Yeah.
No real different than in any other youth group.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, maybe a
Frankly.
bit more food.
Yeah, like carols and hot chocolate is what comes to mind.
Yeah,
And I remember as a kid, it seemed like the quintessential white elephant gift was that box, the Lifesavers collection that opens up like a book and it has all those
Oh, yeah.
rows after row after row of Lifesavers, like every flavor that's ever been made. And it was like this Lifesavers storybook. And I feel like I got one of those just by chance from whatever gift exchange I was in every year. Did you
Very
have
nice.
those boxes, like big box of Lifesavers?
Yeah.
I remember
yeah.
them.
I
Yeah.
remember them. Yeah.
Yep.
Last year for the white elephant for our youth group, my son, he's how old is he? 14 now. He got a box of fancy mustards, and it was pretty hilarious because
Yes.
like we didn't even go through them all. Like we were like, how do we even use? We don't. None of us are big mustard people. We're like, how do we go through these before they all expire? So it was like 7 different fancy mustards, and it was like not like little tiny things like Grey Poupon. It was like big jugs of it. It was like we're like brown spicy mustard versus just brown mustard. I don't know the difference.
You
Better
have a
use one of
tasting.
these. Yeah.
You have to have
So
a mustard tasting.
it was a mustard Christmas for him.
Nice. I remember our son Noah got ready for a youth group event last year, and he was so proud when he found this giant box of chocolate at Trader Joe's, and he was so excited to be able to bring that and give that as a gift.
I'm sure that
Excited
was
for him
traded
because
for
I
him.
would have loved to get that gift.
Yeah.
I have one final question for us.
Uh-oh.
Is it more appropriate to say Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays? Go.
Well, Happy
just
Holidays
kidding.
is inclusive of like Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And so strategically it makes sense to say Happy Holidays because then you are including all of the potential holidays in that, as well as
Yes.
any other holiday that anyone might celebrate. And so I do a little code switching and I will say Merry Christmas to some people and I will say Happy Holidays to some people. And I've heard even people say like Happy Advent.
Oh, there you go. I have people that I just poke the bear with sometimes, and because they know it's not antagonistic. Like I'm not trying to tick them off. They just know it's a little trigger if I say Happy Holidays. So I'll say it on purpose just to see the reaction. It's pretty fun.
I've also heard Merry Xmas really gets under some people's skin.
I bet.
Yeah, I don't do either of those. I will just say, yo ho ho, I'm good to go. Rapping on the mic because God says so. He says, yo, go out and fish for me.
Let's go, man.
Wow.
I've
Do
done,
people leave halfway through that greeting? They're like, Troy,
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
I've taunted my children with pretty much that entire thing from memory after 35 years. And I should say, I should give fair time to my sister. That song was such a staple in our house that she and her friend, for the science fair, they had like a talent show thing at school for a science fair.
Mhm.
They made up their own lyrics to go to the tune of Yo Ho Ho and sang it for the talent show. And I think she could probably still sing that entire song of the lyrics that they wrote in sixth grade today in her 40s.
Sure.
Well,
Dang.
we'll have to get her on the show and
That's right.
let's hear it.
Yeah.
It can be the
We were
opening bumper music.
promised. We were promised a different version of Yo Ho
There you
Ho.
go. Yeah, yeah. I'll do mine and she'll do hers.
I said Merry Christmas to the woman who cut my hair this week. And I was like, I felt bad after I left. I was like, oh, I should have said Happy Holidays. I have no idea if she celebrates, Christmas in that way. And I totally felt bad walking out. I was like, oh, I hope I didn't offend her. She did a good job on my hair.
I have a friend at work who totally is not offended, but like it's just a trigger for him. Like it's just something he gets upset about. And so like it'll be like mid-August. I'll be like, Tim, Happy Holidays.
It works in so many different occasions.
Is he a Christmas person or not?
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it needs to be Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I do remember arguing about that in high school, but then also arguing the other side where like you got to keep the Christ in Christmas. You can't take it. Christ out of Christmas. You can't use the X. But then there was that the X was the symbol for Christ, and
Yeah,
it was,
it's the Greek
and then
symbol.
so
Is that true? Theology people?
Sure. I
Sure.
mean, it's the start of the word. So X in Greek was CH, the CH sound. Yeah.
This isn't Christmas related. It's Easter related. But I do like saying, oh, I gave that up for Lent to just about anything all year round. So like people will be like, oh, do you eat fish? Or like, no, that's a bad example because that actually is a Lent one. But people will be like things and I'll be like, oh, do you eat spicy food? And it'll be like August and be like, no, I gave it up for Lent.
Well, hey, you two. Thanks very much for helping us out. Really appreciate this. Super fun. Always great to talk to you and connect. I do wish you Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Advent, Happy Xmas, whatever you're going to do. I hope you get to enjoy it. So this was fun. Thank you very much for helping us out.
Thank you. It's great to see you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. We hope you enjoyed it. Once again, we want to say thanks to Meleah and Troy for joining us to talk about their Christmas memories and just kind of spending some time with us to talk about Christmas things. It was great to hear kind of some of those stories. And I know we're a little all over the place, but we thought it would just be a fun episode to get out there. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that stuff. We thanks for checking out this show. We really did have a fun time making it. You can find us on Twitter at the handle @SurviveYG. You can also email us at isurviveyouthgroup@gmail.com. If you're interested in being on the show, let us know. You didn't have to attend our youth group, but if you have your own youth group experience from the 90s or the 2000s, we'd love to connect. We'd love to hear it. You can, again, reach out to us on Twitter or at that email address. We'd love to connect and have you on the show. Please subscribe and share the podcast. If you're so inclined, leave a rating or review. If you enjoy this show, you might also enjoy the other podcast I do. It's a music podcast called the Album Anniversary Podcast. Over the last couple of years, I've researched and documented the release date of thousands of albums. Throughout the week, I post about them on social media. I've had a couple different formats on the show, but it's a chance to sit down with somebody and talk about an album that they love and why it's important to them. Once again, it is called the Album Anniversary Podcast. The music at the beginning and the end of this show is the instrumental version of the song Positive Charge by the artist Dread Pirate Roberts. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
And they were very willing to do so, which was very kind of them. But we enjoy conversing with them. They have a fun dynamic and two different experiences growing up as youth group kids. And definitely, I'm going to start over. That was terrible.
Okay.
That was an outtake.
Ready?
3, 2, 1.